What would you do if you were alone on a dark, deserted road and stumbled upon something terrifying? These truckers encountered the unexplainable during their night drives, experiences that will send chills down your spine. Story 1. Abandoned gas station nightmare. A trucker used to night drives and strange encounters whilst hauling a load of wooden furniture across California. The route took him through endless desert roads. As the sun set, the emptiness of the desert grew more intense, and he decided to push his truck a bit faster. Out of nowhere, he spotted flashing rear lights on the horizon, forcing him to brake hard. He pulled up behind an old Chevy Impala parked on the side of the road with its hazard lights on. Wanting to be helpful, he got out and approached the car. But when he looked inside through the tinted windows, there was no one there. The car was completely empty. Curiosity got the best of him, so he grabbed a heavy-duty flashlight from his truck and scanned the area. The beam revealed an abandoned gas station nearby, something he hadn't noticed before. The fill-up area was just dirt. No concrete, only 2 gas pumps, and a small building that looked like it used to be a quick-stop store. Thinking the car's owner might be inside, he walked over to the building. The front door was jammed, and his flashlight lit up what used to be a convenience store, now long abandoned. He called out, offering help, but only his echo answered him back, giving him chills. Then he heard it, a shoe scraping against the floor behind some shelves. He called out again, but this time what he heard was downright creepy. A deep, heavy whisper saying,
"Get out."
None of it made sense. Who would say that and why? The trucker could also hear heavy breathing coming from one corner of the room. That was enough to make him bolt back to his truck. Back at his truck, he called 911, too scared to go back inside the building. He tried to explain where he was, somewhere on a desert road near an abandoned gas station. But before he could finish, the Chevy Impala's engine roared to life, and the car sped off into the darkness. The trucker hadn't even noticed anyone getting into the car. It was so dark and he was distracted by the phone call. Realizing something terrible might have happened, he rushed back into the building, still on the line with 911. Back in the section where he'd heard the voice and breathing, he found a fresh pool of blood on the floor. The sight was horrifying. Soon after, state troopers arrived and questioned him about what he had seen and heard. All he could provide was a vague description: a black Chevy Impala, early 2000s, and a man who had told him to get out. He also mentioned hearing a woman screaming as they left the building. But there was no body, just blood, and the trucker had no dashcam to capture the license plate number. The police took blood samples and gathered what evidence they could, but the trucker couldn't offer much more. The incident haunted him, and the very next week, he installed a dashcam in his truck. Story 2. Mysterious desert encounter. In 2017, a trucker with nearly 15 years of experience found himself driving an overnight haul through the pitch-black Mojave Desert, heading towards Arizona. The truck's headlights were dim, a problem that had been ignored for too long, and the darkness around him was so intense that he had to strain his eyes just to see the road ahead. It was about an hour before sunrise when something unexpected happened. A fast-approaching shape appeared in the distance. Concerned it might be an animal, he slammed on the brakes, bringing the truck to a screeching halt just a foot away from what turned out to be a car. But this wasn't just any car. It was parked directly on the double yellow lines in the middle of the road, with its hazards blinking and the passenger door wide open. Strange, right? Curiosity got the better of him, and instead of driving away, he decided to investigate. It was a warm, still night, eerily quiet, with the only sound being the faint clicking of the hazard lights. Approaching cautiously, he noticed the car was a new-looking red Ford Fusion, but something was off. The car was completely empty. He checked the back seat, looked around, and confirmed that there was no one inside. The unease began to grow. Who leaves a car like this in the middle of nowhere? And where was the driver? Despite the creeping fear, he continued to inspect the vehicle. He noticed the key was still in the ignition, but the engine was off. Strange, but things were about to get even weirder. He moved to check the trunk, but it was jammed. Using the key, he unlocked it, but he still couldn't open it from the outside, so he accessed the trunk through the back seat. Inside, he found 3 squished garbage bags and a rope that had been used to tie the trunk shut. Suspicious, right? Just as he reached for one of the bags, the loudest gunshot he had ever heard pierced the silence. Panicking, he scrambled out of the car, leaving the keys on the front seat, and rushed back to his truck. As he climbed into the semi, a gruff voice shouted, "Hey," from the darkness. The voice was getting closer, and soon he saw the figure, a short, husky man with red hair wearing overalls and shin-high boots. The man held a shovel in one hand and an old hunting rifle in the other. They locked eyes for a moment. The man didn't look deranged, but rather worried. He started waving his hands and shouting, "Wait," but there was no way the trucker was sticking around. He gunned the engine and took off, heart racing. But just as he thought he was in the clear, headlights appeared in the rear view, speeding towards him. Panic set in and the car honked relentlessly, tailing him closely. He called the police, trying to explain the situation while the car behind him became more aggressive, eventually cutting in front and forcing him to slow down. It seemed like the end, until flashing police lights appeared in the distance. The car swerved into the desert, disappearing into the darkness. Relieved but shaken, he pulled over to talk to the officer, but instead of chasing the guy down, the cop took a report and sent him on his way. To this day, no one knows what really happened. Some believe the man was burying something far more sinister than an animal. Others think it could have been something else entirely. Story 3. The hidden threat in the closet. In 2010, fresh out of college, a former UPS driver worked an 11 till 7 shift on a cold Thursday in a small town in North Carolina. On this particular day, after hours of delivering across several small towns, he found himself on a lonely street. One side had spaced out homes and trailers, while the other side was lined with dense forest. It was just after 6 p.m. and the shift was winding down. There weren't many deliveries left, but one stood out, a large, heavy box that needed a signature. He pulled in front of the only house on the block, a trailer home, and lugged the heavy package to the door. There was no doorbell, so he knocked, hoping someone was home despite the darkness inside and the absence of a car outside. After a few knocks, he noticed the curtains move slightly and heard footsteps approaching the door. But then, there was a long, suspicious pause before the door finally creaked open. An elderly woman, looking frail and uneasy, poked her head out. She seemed fidgety as she signed for the package, her signature barely legible. Then she asked for help carrying the box into a room. The driver expected this and agreed, but the moment he stepped inside, he was hit with a foul stench. Every home has a distinct smell, but this one was awful, something that immediately set him on edge. She led him through a cramped living room to a narrow hallway, making it difficult to maneuver the heavy box. At the end of the hallway, she opened a door and asked him to put the box in the closet at the back of the room. The room was nearly pitch black, with only a sliver of light seeping in from the living room. When he asked her to turn on the light, she said it didn't work. Navigating the box into a dark room, something caught his eye. A figure standing in the corner of the closet. It wasn't just a shadow, there was definite movement. The shape was unmistakable. It was a person hiding and waiting. A chill ran down his spine. There was no logical explanation for someone hiding in that closet. The situation felt wrong, and every instinct screamed at him to get out of there. He quickly set down the box, walked past the woman and wished her a good day. But as he left, she started screaming at him to come back, even hurling insults, calling him a piece of trash. Whatever she and the person in the closet had planned, he wasn't about to find out. He hurried back to his truck, finished his shift, and went home that night, shaken by the experience. These true horror stories from truckers make you wonder what else could be lurking in the shadows of those lonely roads. What would you have done in their shoes? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.